Hello, and welcome to the first in a series of making a game in Unreal Engine. Now, I'm using 5.2. I'm hoping not to be using anything specific to 5.2, but just bear that in mind that if something does come up, you may have to change your engine version. But it shouldn't really be a problem. It's probably, I suppose, space is the issue for installing different versions. But anyway, the idea of this game, we're not talking satisfactory level of building, but we're talking that sort of game. So it's a factory building-esque, but not a factory as such. You'll start getting the gist of it as we go. I'm not going to label it right now. But yeah, we're going to be like building machinery, hopefully electronic components, electrics. It's going to be centered around mining. Mining is actually going to be the core aspect of the game. So there's going to be a lot of modifications, hopefully, for things like different drill bits and different types of drills, mobile, static, that sort of thing. And it's all going to take place on an alien world. And when I mean an alien world, I'm not talking, full of fauna and flora and so forth. There's not going to be the general animals running around, if I could say it like that. But anyway, it's a faraway place. It's in the middle of some obscure universe somewhere. Yeah, well, let's see how it evolves anyway. So right, if you're new to Unreal, just quickly go through this, but I'm not going to be too glossy with exacts on this. I'm not going to go into too detail on basic stuff, but hopefully, even if you're a beginner and you've done all the basics and you know your way around the editor, you should be okay to follow along. You can always look up anything I use if you don't understand how they work, any of the nodes you use. It will all be in Blueprint at the moment, with a view to performance levels. It may have to be upgraded to C++, but yeah, that's if we get that far. Anyway, let's move on. So I digressed a little too much there. Epic Launcher. Make sure you're in the Unreal tab and then go to Library. And then make sure you have 5.2 installed or 5.1 and just launch it. And then we're just going to wait, unfortunately, for the thing to load. Always the longest part. This bit's pretty quick, but it's once you choose a game. So go to Games. And what we're going to do, we're going to base it for now on, I'm thinking the first person template. I'm going to change the quality to scalable. The reason I say that is because of you guys following along. I do have quite a hefty PC. It will run some quite intense stuff. But we'll go with scalable for now because it will help us work on different areas for lower spec machines. For now, we're going to use the UE4 mannequin, the UE5 mannequins even, so Manny or Quinn. I'm not going to use any starter kit. I'm not going to enable ray tracing. I'm just going to call this Alien. Oh, spell it correctly. Alien Prospect. Alien Prospect, because we're prospectors, aren't we? So Alien Prospects. There we go. So first person. So games, first person. Give it a name and click create. We're not going to be using the first person template. That's just part of the thing. We just wanted the first person character in the game so that we can move around and such to have a look at things, just for testing. So we're going to ignore this. So what we're going to do first is we're going to create a new level. Now let's, as you can see, all the first person stuff. This is annoying me because it's got all these in separate folders. So I'm going to create a new folder here. So select content and then right click, new folder, and we're going to call this, what shall we call this? Main content. So this separates us from the rest of these things here. Just gives it a little bit more clarification. We can actually set the color of this and make it a little bit obvious. So the main content will be, yeah, there we go, nice white. So that means when we come into the content drawer, it stands out. Yeah, okay, so let's go into this one. So what we need to do now is right click again once we're inside the main content and create another new folder, and we're going to call this, we'll call it levels, not maps, we'll call it levels. And again, we could change the color of this, new color, and for levels it's going to be a nice green colour. The only thing when you don't have your content drawer pinned, could dock it in layout, but it loses a lot of real estate out here, doesn't it? Okay, so we have levels. So we'll go inside there and we're going to right click and new level. Let's give this a name. So we're going to call this prototyping. Now, why have I called it prototyping? Well, when you're building objects for Unreal and you're making blueprints, you don't necessarily want to be testing them in a great big open world. How big this open world's going to be, I am not going to say just yet, because we haven't yet decided on that. But we don't want to be testing everything where there's a massive load just for the landscape itself. So we're going to create a prototyping level. Open that up. You've got to save. It's really strange this. You've created it, but then it's asking you to save. So save selected. Okay. It's a blank, yeah. So we've got nothing in the world. So we need to add a few things now. Unreal makes this a lot easier for us. So we'll do that. So window, and we want the environment light mixer. So it's env light mixer, and click on it. So this one opens. Now we don't need to pin it anywhere. We could do, but we're only going to use this once. You got normal, you got advanced, you got minimal. I'm just leaving it on minimal for now because this is a prototype level. Okay, so we don't need no height fog. We don't need, well, we could put volumetric clouding, but I don't think we really care. But what we need to do is create a skylight. We need to create a sky atmosphere and create an atmospheric light. And there we go. We have a world that's lit up. Don't need to change anything in here. It's a prototyping level. So we've basically got a world here. We're not bothered about the clouds. Let's not overload this down or anything. All right. So we've basically got a nice world in here. So all we're going to need now in here is a platform. It's just something for us to build on. It has to be quite big. So I'm going to use a box. So we're going to go add, and we're going to go to shapes. So this is the add drop down menu, shapes. I'm going to add a cube. Doesn't look much at the moment, our little cube there, but we want to put it at the world center. Right, so where are we? Where have we put it? Are we right below us, above us? Oh, double click on it and you can find it. There we go. So let's move up and down a bit. Okay, there we go. That's perfect. I think my speed's a little bit high. I think they've changed the speed of level 0. Okay. Okay. They've changed that a hell of a lot. Oh, gee. So there we go. Slow that down a bit. So this little camera icon, I've brought it down to 0.33. It's very much different. Good for open worlds though. Right. The center of the cube is in the center of the world, which is good. That's perfect. So we don't need the cube very deep. We could just leave it like that. We don't actually care what it looks like. So with our cube selected, just click it there or in there. Hit F2 and you can rename it. So we're going to call this ground cube. Yep. So it's just a ground cube, nothing else, nothing special. Okay. Now we need to resize it. Now we want it quite big because we might be placing quite a few things on here for testing purposes. So we're going to rescale it. Scale of 1, I believe, in Unreal units is 1 meter. So the subunits here are tenths of a centimeter. Are they 10 centimeters? Yeah. Yeah. So I believe 1 is 1 meter. So let's make it quite a large open space. So we want to, let's have a kilometer square. It's not going to really use much power. So on the X, we'll put in 1,000, and on the Y, we'll put in 1,000. Oh, that's bright, isn't it? With that light shining on it. That's a very bright. It's very bright. Make sure you've got the cube selected. We're going to change this, and we're going to click here on the name of the material, and we're going to search for, just put prototype grid. I like the dark one, so we're going to use that. There we go. that just gives us a bit of, it just gives us a bit of an idea of where we're placing things. Okay, so now we have a cube grid that will allow us for placing things. So they are in, judging by that, 20 centimeter blocks, I presume. Let's go below the grid. Is it the same size? Yes, it is. It's exactly the same size. Okay, that's good. Just wanted to make sure. What we're going to do is select this directional light, and we'll just lift that up a bit, and lift that up a bit, and lift that up a bit. They don't actually matter where they are. Let's come out a bit, lift them right up, so they're not actually on the ground, and they're not in our way, and they're not going to confuse us. Right. So we have a ground. What's this here? Oh, that's the actual directional light. So we have a plane to work on. So that's really the initial setup done. So what I would suggest is just go File, just hit Save All, and that should now all be saved in your level. Okay, so what are we going to put into this world? So, okay, there's going to be numerous things in here, but everything we use in game, in general, is going to take something for power. So we need to create something that will allow us to create power. To do this, we're going to use something called a blueprint. And basically a blueprint is like a prefab. It's basically a container that holds multiple meshes, objects, components, all different things that you can use to create an interactable object. What we're going to do is we're going to first create something simple, and that simple object, we are going to use a simple object, by the way, we're not using nothing spectacular, is going to be a generator. To make this generator, all we're going to do, there's going to be no fancy graphics in this, no, not at the start anyway. We're just going to use a cube, and we're just going to stretch it around a little. So let's make our generator. So we need a content drawer. So go back to our main content, the grey one, and we're going to right click, new folder, blueprints, and we're going to color this one, right click, set color, new color, and of course blue. Okay, looks more purple than blue, but never mind. And we'll go inside this one. Why do you say I keep opening and, well, I say keep creating folders, and everyone does it? Because the more things you add into your game, the more complicated it becomes. If you don't keep it organized, you quickly lose track. I will probably start losing track within this. I will start forgetting where I'm at, and I will start putting things all over the place. I used to have a separate folder for materials, textures, but then I found it difficult to link them to the different objects. So now what I do is each object has its own subfolders for things like that, except for generic textures and things like that are just widely used. Without, they will come in their own folder. But anyway, so we're in blueprints. So if we right click and we want to add a blueprint, oh, get my words out, a blueprint class. So left click on that. Now, if you don't know anything about these, I'll just quickly go over them. So there's different types of blueprint classes, and these are the parents, and basically it's the type of default objects that they give you. Now there are others in your classes, but we will leave that for now. We will be touching on that later as part of this object we're making now. So actor is a generic object that can be spawned into the world, and basically you can interact with it and things like that, but you don't control it as such. It's a static object. It doesn't mean it won't actually move or not do anything, but it is a static object. A pawn, that's a player character. That's one you can take control of. It could be an RC car, it could be a moon rover, it could be a jeep, it could be a wizard, it could be a footballer. A pawn is a player you can take control of. A character is a pre-built pawn that has a number of set controls in there for controlling player characters, as in living characters rather than generic characters, if you understand me. And so, yeah, it has walking characteristics and so forth characteristics. Player controller, that will become important. We will be touching on that later. That's how the player is controlled, basically, and it links the two together, and it is something you need. The game mode base is a list of its rules. It says, hey, yeah, you can use it for quite a fair few things, but the game mode, it's different facets of the game, as it says there. An actor component is a reusable component that you can add to any actor. A scene component is basically a scene transform object where you can attach things to. It gives you a location for attaching things. They're very useful. Again, we might come across those as we go. But for now, we need just a plain old actor. So we're going to call this BP for blueprint underscore generator basic. Why have I done that? Well, when these are listed, the generators will all come in the same order. So it'll go generator basic and so on. So I'll be able to see all those come together when there's loads of objects around. So I can get an idea of which is which. It lets me put the main type in here and the under type there. I'm actually just going to rename that by pressing F2, and I'm going to change this to call it base. Why did I do that? Well, there is a reason. What's the point in creating code that you're going to create over and over again for different types of generators? So what will happen is this one here will be configurable to make child classes where you can make better and bigger versions of it just by generating and changing bits of code, which we'll go across as we go. Now, as you can see, we've created this in the blueprints folder. We're going to create a new one in here, a new folder called electrical. Right, so these are going to be electrical components. So we'll put that in there. Click move here. Then we'll go inside. Should we change the color of that? Yeah, we'll set the color of that. What's the color of electric? It's like yellow for the hazard color, isn't it? There we go. So electrical. But again, that's not enough. We're going to create a new folder. I'm not going to color this one. This one's going to be supply. And we're going to drag that in there and click move here. Now, once you keep moving things, even though we've not used anything yet, common practice is to right click on the content drawer here and click fix up redirectors. What that does is it tells Unreal that to fix up any redirectors to point to that new folder it's moved to, if you understand. So the whole game, wherever it's referenced, wherever we've referenced this generator, it will automatically make sure that it references the correct path. Okay, right, so now we have our generator. What we're going to do with it, we're going to double click it. We're going to start off with something really basic. For some reason, if you can see here, my extra windows seem to start minimized up here. I don't know why they do this. I'm going to maximize it. I'm also going to bring it down and drop it in there because it's easier to flick between the two instead of having a separate window open. Okay, so blueprint. This is the base viewport. It shows you all the 3D parts of it. Then we have a construction script, which is what happens when it constructs. And we have an event graph. I was going to say that event graph for controlling events like begin play, overlaps, ticks, and we'll touch on all those later on. So this one's going to be quite an important one because a lot of people are going to cry if I use this, but I'm going to use it. But I'm going to try to show you how to use it properly and how to use it in such a way that would be beneficial and not too overbearing, because we can modify how this is run. Okay, so let's go back to our viewport. Now we're missing something here. So we haven't got an object. Now we've got a default scene route, but that's just this, just something to attach to. So in the components here, we click add, and we're going to add a cube. Oh, that's massive. That's enormous, but it's not. It's just zoomed in. So that is a meter cube. Now, I'm not sure on the dimensions of a generator. So I'm going to guess that on the X, we're going to have about 1.5 meters long. On For Y, we're going to go for 0.75. And on the height, I reckon another 1.5 on that. No, that's a bit too tall, isn't it? So we're going to go with 1. Okay. As you can see, it's intercepting the center space. We don't want to do that. We want to bring this and get to sit up on the ground. Now, we know it's 1.5 meters tall, so we need to bring this up to sit on the ground. But it's in percentage, so the Z is 50. But it's on the ground. So it's 50% of the scale. Okay? Just to make that clear. Now, it's a little bit nondescript, just a little bit unimportant. So what we're going to do, we're going to colour this. So we're going to create a material for it. The reason I'm doing that now, it just makes things easier to view. Now, it's only going to be a basic material to start with, because that will come later on. We'll touch on jazzing these things up later on. So let's just compile it and save it for now. And we're going to create a new material. So I'm not sure if we can do a new one from here. No, we can't. So content drawer, we're already in our supply, and here we have our generator base. We now want to have a new folder, generator. We're going to pop that inside there, move here, go inside, and then we want to create a new folder, and we're going to call this materials. Okay, and inside here we're going to right click and create a new material. Generally, when I create a material, I'll go M for material underscore and what we're going to call it, and we'll call this generator base. Okay, so we now know that that's the generator base. Now what we do, click and hold and drag it on, and it didn't want to work, so we'll drag it to there. There we go. Normally you could just drag it into the viewport, maybe not in a blueprint. You can in the wild world of prototyping over there. So that material is now mapped to our generator. So let's double click it. What do we want in our material? Now, for now, we might have different colors for different types of generators. So we're going to go with the base color. That's all we're going to need out of all of these at the moment, because we're not using any like sort of hardcore materials or textures or anything like that, and we're not going to be setting its type. We could set the metallic up, make it look like metal. So we want the base color. So what do we want to add to the base color? Well, we want to change its color. So we could just go in there and we could just say we want a vector parameter. Okay, and we're going to call this base. Now I use a U because I'm British. You can use a without the U and just put color with an O like it has there. I'm British, I'm going to type it how I see fit. Okay, so this is basically a parameter now that this has an input for. So we will link this into the base color. Okay, but it's not done anything. No, that's because it's black still there, so it's not changed anything. Double click, and we're going to go with like an off yellow. There we go. It's like a matte color. We could make it look a little bit metallic. If you hold down 1 on the keyboard and just tap the click, it just gives us a set value, scalar value. We'll shove that into the metallic. 0 is matte, and up to 1 is full metallic. I'm not going to go into the full details of materials, and as you can see, it's like a metal color. I'm not going to change it, we'll leave it like that. So if we just apply and save. Okay, now we can't change any of these values. I'll show you what I mean. If we come in here, we can't change any of those values, and that's because it's just a normal material. To get access to the parameters we've just made, we right click and we will create a material instance. Okay, so what I'm going to do is call this mi for material instance generator. Did I spell that right? Yeah, base. So now it's like a darker green underline. There's green, there's darker green. That's to show that it's a material instance. Okay, so now if I double click this, I can't modify the graph at all, but what I can do is I can change the base color. Okay, so that allows me to modify any settings that we have changed. So if I want to come in here and we can make this more of a metallic red, like a shiny red, click OK and then save. If I come back to the content drawer, it's now metallic red. Okay, so untick it, save it again, and it's back to the normal. So this is the core material we're going to be using, and this is subset that we can use and we can change. So each one of these can have a different instance of this. So we create one material, but each one of these we can have different colors for different objects. So back to our generator. We now have that, so we need to change this material now. The quickest way to do that is to click here, highlight it, so there it is in blue, and then click this little arrow. And for some reason my dock has docked, so there, click that arrow. It got locked on there then. So click that arrow and there we go. It's now using mi generator base. Okay, so then I can come in here and I'll say, right, I want to make this a different color, and we're going to have this generator a nice blue. There we go. Save that, go back here, it's now blue. Okay, doesn't look like much here because there's not much lighting going on, so ignore that. So we have a generator, and we're going to rename this as main mesh. The reason I'm going to call it that and not the main generator, because this is going to change. This mesh can change depending on the type of generator. This could be the small basic one. Then you could have a giant one that handles a lot more stuff. So we need to know how all that will work. So we're just going to call that the main mesh. Okay, so I am actually going to keep my default scene route. Because if we start messing around and moving the main mesh up as the default scene route, and then we start modifying it, it could screw some of the settings up. So whenever you do a change inside a blueprint, you need to save and compile it, but you could do that a number of things in between. So what does our generator need? We need an on-off. Yeah, let's first, we're not going to actually interact with it, we're just going to add in a way of turning it on off as such from the editor. So we're going to add in a new variable, so click there, and we're going to call this B for Boolean activated. Okay, so it is already a Boolean there, but if it's not, come in here, change the type to Boolean. Okay, now we can't change the default value of it until we compile it. So click compile, and there we can change it. So we can now switch it on and off. Now what we want to do for now is just click this eye. This allows it to be seen in the editor, and I'll show you that. In fact, I'll show you that now. So we'll compile and save, come to prototyping, and if we go to our content drawer, come to our blueprints and come to our generator, we drag that now into the world, we can see this activated here. Yep, it's under a category called default at the moment, so we'll call that a name. We'll do that now just to show you actually. So that can be named here in the category. It's classed as default. There's no other one, but all you do is type in it. So we'll say generator control. We'll call that generator control. So here it does appear, generator control, B is activated. Compile. If we come in here, it now have generator control. So we can now activate that from on here and without having to have an interaction with the item. We will have an interact script at some point, but that's going to be later on down the line because it's going to be something universal. So if we use look now, we can move this along the grid. It's going in tens. If we want it to follow the grid that's on there, we can change that to, where's the custom gone? Oh, we have to set that up. I'm not going to set it yet. So you can just set custom snap values, but you have to go into the properties and so forth. I'm just going to save that. Let's go back to our generator base. So here we are. So we can now switch it on and off. It doesn't do anything, but we have something that tells us if it's on or off. So what does a generator do? So let's add in a variable, and we're going to call this max power. Yes, we're all going to be saying Homer Simpson. Yeah, we all know that episode. So max power. We could call it maximum power, but we know what this means. This can't be a boolean because it's either yes or no, on or off, 1 or 0. So we need to change this to a float. Now we could use an integer, but floats are easier because we can use percentages when we're taking fuel away. Just makes it nice and easier. So we're going to call that a float. Next one we do is add a variable, and we're just going to say fuel per tick. Okay, so this is going to be the amount of fuel it uses for every tick that this throws, and the tick is what we're going to use to reduce the fuel and to generate power. Okay, fuel per tick. Okay, we're also going to just view these for now so that we can see them. Now both of these are not really in generator control, are they? So we'll give a new name for this one, and we'll call this generator setup. Okay, and then we click that one, and all we have to do is click the down box and click generator setup. Compile and save those, and when we come in here, we have generator control and we have generator setup. Yep, it'll all become apparent why this is needed here for now. It doesn't actually need to be so, but this is so we can debug. This allows us to take control of it without having all the interact code in there, so that we can test how things are working. So back into our generator. That's how much fuel it uses per tick. Now we're going to put a description here. It is fuel per tick, but it's not necessarily going to be static. Now I don't know yet if I'm just going to automatically generate the maximum kilowatts, or whether it's going to be based on the required power, which is going to have a lot more code down the line. No, we'll add that later on, so we'll ignore this. So it's fuel per tick. We're just going to generate the maximum kilowatt power. We can put descriptions in here if we like. So how much fuel to provide maximum power each tick. So that's our generator setup. So we have the maximum power output and the amount of fuel per tick. So we need to add another one, and this is going to be max fuel, and we'll add another one called current fuel, but I'll just put cur for current. Both of these need to be floats, so we're going to highlight those so we can see them. And the maximum amount of fuel is definitely going to be a setup, but the current fuel is in part of the control, I would say. Yep, current fuel, the maximum fuel. So when you fill it up, that's the maximum it can take, and how much is currently fuel is left. Yep, simple information. So how do we actually make this run? Okay, so there's a number of ways we could do this. What I'm going to do is use the event tick. Now I don't like using timers for code when I don't need to. Everyone will tell you that event tick is dangerous. No, you can't use it. It just ruins your game. No, it doesn't. Event tick used correctly enhances your game. You've got to use it correctly though. You can have bad uses for event tick. You do not want to be running hefty code on event tick. Okay, but you can call hefty code from event tick as long as you've got a bit of control over what you're doing with it. So this is where we set different functions to run for different times. okay, from within the event tick. I'll explain it as we go along. It's a little bit confusing. So I'm going to save that. It's all compiled and saved. So now I can set all these. So our maximum fuel. So for now it takes 100 litres of fuel. So we'll put in our max fuel there. Maximum number of little space there, litres of fuel. Okay. And that's fine. And the maximum power. The maximum power in kilowatts. Later on we could have modifiers for these. There might be mods that go onto this to boost it, but for now we're going to keep it basic. The current fuel level. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 100 fuel in there. So maximum fuel 100 litres, but I'm going to currently put it in. The reason I put some in there because we're going to use this to test, to make it look like it, so you can see it's playing. Yeah, compile that and save. I do this regularly because if you ever have a crash, it just makes it easier. So we now have a generator that has an on-off. It has how much fuel it's got, the maximum power output, the fuel it uses per tick, and the maximum fuel. Doesn't do a lot, does it? No, it doesn't. No, afraid not. I'm going to go into the next episode to show you then how to put all those together to create the actual generator experience, so that it will, whilst it's on, it will use fuel, and when it runs out of fuel it will turn off, or unless you turn it off yourself. Okay, now these are only basics. We can have things like wear and tear over time or breakdowns, that sort of stuff, but we're not going to touch on those yet. Maybe later on, if this is successful enough, we could do that, but for now we're going to have a basic generator. And yeah, so in the next episode we'll piece these all together. Now I'm making these episodes in tandem, one after the other. I'm keeping them as short as possible to make it a little bit easier for you to see, but the next one should be available at the same time as this, so you can jump straight into it anyway. So we'll see you in the next episode. I hope you're understanding it so far, and yeah, we will move on to bigger and better things with this little generator. Okay, I will see you in the next episode. Take care.